Okay, so first of all, welcome. Thank you guys for being here with me today. I'm Amelia. I'm really excited to be having this conversation. I was wondering if we could start with just everybody briefly telling us about the focus of your journal, your role at your journal, and then also like one goal you have for your journal in the future, and then also please your name because you are people too. Let's start with our online guest. So name of journal, role in journal, and then a goal going forward.
Okay, I can start. Mary and I are both with this journal. It's called Community Change. My name is Lara Nagle, and I'm the Community-Based Research Manager at the Institute for Policy and Governance. And I believe Brad is on the panel as well. I can't see him, but he's with our journal as well. So I'll give an overview of the journal. So it's an online peer-reviewed graduate student journal that seeks to explore multiple approaches to democratic community development and change. It's an interdisciplinary journal examining the practices, processes, and individual and collective struggles that produce change at all levels of society. We heard from Jason in the last hour. He's been a really tremendous support for our journal in helping us with all kinds of technical challenges and also some more substantive questions we've had as we've evolved as a journal. So I just want to give him a shout out there. We typically publish peer-reviewed articles, but we also accept book reviews, essays, other work, including multimedia and artwork. And we are affiliated with the Community Change Collaborative, which is a program of the Institute for Policy and Governance. Brad might be able to speak more to it, but it is an aligned graduate student discussion group, and it brings in guest speakers and lecturers. And there's a synergy there with the journal where those lecturers or guest speakers might sit down with us and do a shorter piece or a shorter scholarly work for the journal. I think there's also some relationship there with CCC and community change, and that the students that are interested in the Community Change Collaborative feed into our editorial board and serve as editors for our journal. A little bit more about the journal. We publish on a rolling basis, and but we do package our issues as complete, and we do special issues as well. So depending on if we have guest editors with faculty or other students, we have published special issues. And we are open access, which is a really great strength of our journal, as Jason mentioned. And so, yeah, my role with the journal, I've been with the journal for a few years now, several years now. I was an editor for 3 years, and then I've transitioned to more of an advisory position at this point. And so one goal I have for the journal is, I think what we've heard probably throughout this whole conference is how to build up that rotation of editors who can really commit the time and interest to sustain the journal longer term. So that's really what I'd love to see for the journal, even as editors graduate and move on. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mary Olumide-Oyaniyi. I'm one of the editorial board member of Community Change. So I think Lara have already given like comprehensive information about the journal. I just want to add just a little about the editorial policy of the journal. We, like all submission made to the journal, are initially processed, are assessed by the editors. Like an editor, some editor will be attached to particular submission or article submitted, and so these editors will decide whether or not article fits the scope of the journal or whether it's suitable for a peer review. Then after submissions are considered or after they have been considered as suitable, they are assigned to one or more independent experts. And this expert, they assess the article for clarity, for validity, and sound methodology. Then the journal operates on a double-blind peer review process, meaning that the authors and the reviewers remain anonymous for the review process. So the process period is expected to take around like 3 to 4 weeks. Reviewers are asked to provide formative feedback, even if the article is not deemed suitable for the publication. We still expect feedback from the reviewer. Then based on the reviewer reports, the editorial board will make a recommendation whether to reject or whether there should be a minor or major revision or acceptance. So that's basically what we do. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's working now. Yes, perfect. I am Stephanie. I am the editor-in-chief of GW's The Globe, our undergraduate journal in international affairs. We obviously, our main function is to publish international affairs research through the Elliott School here at GW. We really have tried to establish ourselves as a journal to have all kinds of international affairs research, from the scope of human rights and climate change studies to political change and diplomacy. And we have tried to make it an opportunity for undergraduate students to learn the research process and partake in every part of that, which is in a lot of places not available to students. So we've really tried to expand that so that students studying international affairs and related fields can be introduced to that and really have an in-depth experience, so that if they want to continue either working in publishing, doing their own research further, or maybe they want to pursue a master's or some higher degree, that'll really help them build those connections and kind of bridge that gap we tend to see between undergraduate and graduate research. As for what I do for our journal as the editor-in-chief, I run pretty much all day-to-day operations, whether that's communications or working through the structure and kind of hierarchy of every aspect of the research process, which I'm not going to go into detail because I feel like we've heard it over and over again today. But my main job is making sure that our entire system of editors and staff and authors is all working in tandem with each other, and that we continue to grow as a research community and as a journal in the field.
Hi, my name is Afreen, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the Globe's sister publication, which is The Compass. So we also do a lot of international affairs-related blogs, and they're on a much shorter scale, but we publish things such as opinion pieces, issue briefs, and case studies about different countries. And as editor-in-chief, I have a similar role, such as overseeing the production. I publish the thing onto the website and run the Instagram and LinkedIn for promoting these pieces. And I think that one goal that I'd like to see with the Compass would be just to like streamline the editorial succession process, as the panelists were previously talking about, and just make sure that process is more efficient.
I do apologize. I forgot to mention my goal. We've gone so into detail with things that I lost track of my thought. My main goal for the journal pretty much aligns with what Afreen wants to do. I'm really hoping over our next issue, and as I pass things on to our next editor-in-chief, that we can expand our research community further. Not just within the GW community, but within the wider research community, which we've already done by trying to open ourselves up to potentially publishing some outside articles, as well as trying to be both competitive and friendly at the same time, so that we can reach that level of innovation and commitment that we see when journals have really, really strong succession as they continue on with their publication.
Alrighty. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Nicole Bespalov. I'm a graduate nurse practitioner student at Temple University. Today, I'm here on behalf of CommonHealth, which I'm the editor-in-chief of. It has been quite an incredible year in terms of growth. I started as editor-in-chief about a year ago. In terms of what the scope of the, I guess the journal essentially is. So we were launched in 2020 at ultimately really the height of the pandemic. We are a public health journal. We are focused on pretty much all facets of public health. So we publish not just from Temple University, but we publish outside sources. So that includes really anyone from professional organizations may publish, students may publish. This is open to both graduate and undergraduate students, which I think really makes it special because you can have such a breadth of involvement from everyone. Like I said, I'm a graduate student, but we can also have undergraduate involvement. In terms of really, I guess, goal For me personally, I would like to see a little bit more student involvement, particularly from the undergraduate side. I would like to expand out really our peer review process. Right now, we have a very heavy faculty involvement, which is incredible and I'm very thankful for. But I would really like to see a lot more student involvement as well. And I think that's been some of the challenges just with being an online e-journal. It's difficult to really disseminate the information in a way where all students from all disciplines, not just the College of Public Health, can see it. But I'm excited. Thank you.
Hello. Whoa. Hello, my name is Jacob Sharp. I work for Stillhouse Press. It is a primarily student-ran press where graduate students have the opportunity to learn everything there is to know about publishing. So we have people working in marketing, publicity, editing, and operations management. So I currently work as a publicity assistant, and I help with research and outreach efforts as we work closely with our authors to help publicize their book. And I also work in operations where I help with bookkeeping and fulfilling mail orders and so forth. I think that the biggest goal that we have right now as a student-ran press that I think is very exciting to all of our staff members is on our website, in our mission statement, we say that we publish surprising, gutsy fiction, nonfiction, and poetry that can't or doesn't want to find a home in big publishing. And I think that we're seeing now, especially I've noticed in my almost 2 years now of working in the press, is that efforts that our staff members have made to solidify Stillhouse Press as as an important small press that authors can become excited about the prospect of working with a student-ran journal. And we're seeing now in our submissions team and in submissions, people now mentioning books that we've published recently, like becoming exciting with the prospect of working with students.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Taylor Schaefer, and I also work with Stillhouse Press. I'm a third-year MFA candidate in nonfiction at George Mason University. Just to kind of add on to what Jacob was saying about Stillhouse Press, we are a student-led and also alumni-led journal based out of small press based out of George Mason University, staffed primarily by graduate, undergraduate, and alumni students from the English department in George Mason University. My role is as director of media and marketing for the press. So basically, I am working on publicizing books. I'm kind of working on the branding and presentation of the press to the university and to the wider literary community to kind of figure out how we are presenting ourselves to the world and to other members of the lit community. I would say that my biggest goal for the press has been to strengthen that branding and kind of make it clear what we're about and what we want to publish. But another thing that I'm really looking forward to working on in the next year is kind of strengthening our collaborative mentorship program, which I know another panel mentioned recently, and kind of developing more opportunities for students to professionally develop while working on the press. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. My name is Miriella Jiffar, and I'm a fourth-year student currently at the University of Virginia, where I'm the editor-in-chief of Iris Magazine, which is run out of the University of Virginia's Women's Center. And so Iris Magazine is primarily a literary and arts publication, and we publish every 2 weeks online and also every semester in a print edition. Our program is currently an internship program run through the University of Virginia's Women's Center, so I'm currently an intern. And my goal is for in the future to have more robust freelance submission because we currently work with a team of about 10 writers as interns. But we also have other students who can't join the internship program, but who still want to write for Iris Magazine. And so that's something I'm hoping to pass on to our next editor so that they can incorporate other students into the fold. Oh, yeah, I guess, I mean, it's kind of been said a little bit about kind of what an editor-in-chief does, but beyond kind of the production aspect and all of that, I think my primary role as editor-in-chief is to really guide the creative direction of the magazine. I direct all of the themes that we have every 2 weeks that guide our issues. So I come up with the wording and the prompts for that. I primarily edit. And so we have a system of drafts. So we have 10 writers and we'll be doing drafts we have 3 drafts. So I'll be reading about 30 drafts an issue. And so about 60 drafts a month. And so it's a lot of time commitment. But it's really, truly one of my favorite things that I've done at UVA. And it's helped me grow as both a writer and an editor because I started out as a writer on Iris Magazine. So I'm eternally grateful.
Hi, everyone. My name is Susannah Baker. I'm the assistant editor at Iris Magazine, so I won't go any more into what Iris is. My role is mostly to support Miriella in her vision of what the creative direction of Iris is for the semester and for the year. I also do a lot of the behind the scenes work, communicating with our social media team and working with the paid Iris artists that we have. And I think one goal, a continuous goal for the magazine is to strengthen and expand our reach with the UVA community and also broader readership.
Thank you. Hello all, my name is Brad Stevens. I'm a PhD candidate at Virginia Tech in the Planning, Governance, and Globalization track. I'm the executive editor of the Community Change Journal that was mentioned earlier. I won't go into that anymore. We've all have heard enough. I do whatever the hell I have to do to keep the journal from folding at this point in time. And I guess that leads into, I apologize to Lara in advance, who has told me before she never knows what I'm going to say when I open my mouth, and I usually don't either. But at this point, I will say that I would like to have a conversation in which everything is on the table for the organization, including closure and the resources needed to move forward if we do want to move forward, just because I think that that conversation has not been had as recently as it needs to at this point.
Thank you, everybody, for giving the rundown on what you guys are doing and what you're hoping for in the future. So I have a bunch of questions that are more specific, and I'm going to ask them, and we're not going to go in any particular order. Just if you're on Zoom, just unmute and talk if you have an answer for it. But I wanted to start off with kind of a topic we've been hearing a lot about in every panel, and especially this one, which is how do you recruit new members to work on your staff? And also, how do you retain members and graduate them into roles of higher responsibility? Just because, like we've been talking about, succession is such an issue on these student journals, and also making sure students are in charge and not faculty all the time. So I don't know who wants to start with that.
Okay, is this still on? Okay, perfect. I would say the Globe's main recruitment is that obviously we're part of the Elliott School. We also work with GW's International Affairs Society, which is a big umbrella organization of international affairs and research related things at GW. So we do a lot of our recruitment in there, but we also have made a lot of efforts in the last year to strengthen our media presence. And kind of expanding so that people can work hybridly, or if they're studying abroad somewhere and doing their own research, so they have the opportunity to be a part of it. I think making your journal more flexible to students outside of just like the college you're a part of, outside of the individual program, and making it available to people, not just in person, online, and being flexible with people is a huge part of that. I would say in terms of the succession thing, I did mention this before, we, over the past year, have incorporated what we like to call mid-level promotions. So essentially we'll have peer reviewers, associate editors, and then we have a mid-level promotion before you end up on our senior staff or like our highest level working directly with the editor-in-chief. We call that our production team. So obviously you have all of the peer review aspects where people are going through and doing editing and giving comments and working back and forth with authors. But another important aspect to that is making sure design, editing, and every aspect of the visual and the readability of the work you're publishing is in the best condition it can be when you're ready to publish. So we created our production team both as an opportunity to have that additional quality control, while also allowing lower level staff to express their interest in growing as an individual and helping the journal grow, which I think has helped a lot with really strengthening that succession, because we have continued interest and continued mentorship and growth as a journal, even when maybe we haven't been recruiting directly as much in a semester, because people have that opportunity to grow within the organization instead of just doing the same job all the time. I think being expansive about that and allowing the opportunity to grow with the organization instead of grow separately from the organization is huge. And just making sure we align those two things is by far the most important.
That mid-level goal sounds
I'd just like to build a little bit off of that. Sorry, what was your name? Off of Stephanie's point to mentorship. I feel as though for us, mentorship has been such a core component as to why students stay on the board and want to come back. When I had first started, we essentially did like a chief to chief kind of transitional period where throughout the entirety of the summer, I had actually met very frequently with our previous editor-in-chief, who then essentially guided me into the transition step. And because this person still remained a student at Temple, they were able to take a step back, but was also still kind of there. And I was able to ask questions where I wasn't really just left in the dark. I was really guided along the way. Not only this, but we actually have monthly executive board meetings where I'm able to present the questions, the challenges, review articles that will come up that I don't really know what direction to take. They're able to guide me to help me find reviewers. They're able to guide me with decisions. One of the biggest challenges we actually had was regarding submission guidelines. And we took a very extensive poll to figure out what do we need to change for the submission guidelines to really make it more accessible for those who are interested in submitting to submit. So I would say mentorship really was the key component. And then in terms of retention, we worked very heavily with, over the last couple of months, we've been doing like tabling. We've been doing one-to-one meetings with students who are interested. So for example, with nursing students, I was able to attend a fair and actually hand out flyers. So we're trying to make this digital journal have a physical presence. So.
Hello again. So Stillhouse has kind of a unique structure in comparison to another student journal. We have a faculty advisor, but otherwise everything is entirely student run and led. But we are made up of a combination of people with graduate professional assistantships who work about 20 hours a week for us on stipend, usually students in the MFA program, with interns and volunteers and alumni who have since graduated but still consult and help out. And I call it unique because there is an amount of recruiting that we have to do within the English department and within the school, which is part of the reason why I've been so focused on branding recently, because I think the more students that know about us, the more students that understand the kind of opportunities that they can have once they work with the press, the more students will be interested in participating and joining. And we've seen a lot of an uptick in interest, especially from interns and volunteers and undergraduate students, now that people are more aware of what the press is and what we do at the university. We've had many people reach out to us asking about internships, which is why I'm super excited about our internship program. But as far as promotion and learning, we have been working really closely together on mentoring. We do a lot of kind of what you were talking about before, like transitional periods and collaborative mentorship. So usually GPAs will come in their first year. They're funded for all 3 years in the MFA program. And their first year, they're kind of getting the lay of the land of the press. So they're hanging out, they're coming to staff meetings every week. They're trying to figure out what they're interested in and what they want to learn. And since we have a relatively small staff, we only take 4 to 6 GPAs per staff at a time, basically. We're able to assess on an individual basis what people are interested in learning and kind of move from there. So for example, if somebody comes in interested in acquisitions, they might start with our submission team as a reader and then graduate to submissions manager the next semester or the next year, and then graduate to director of admissions in their 3rd year, once they have kind of generated enough experience to be in a more leadership focused role. And then they would in turn mentor the students working beneath them or working with them in that process. And we've had a lot of success with that model, which is really gratifying. But we've also found ways to get undergraduate students involved in classes. Like we run a kind of Stillhouse class where the goal of the class for that semester is to learn about publishing and read Stillhouse manuscripts from our open call. And we get a lot of students kind of interested in joining the press in that way because they get a taste, they get buy-in, and then they kind of want to work with us further. So we've had a lot of success with the mentorship model. Want to add something, Jacob?
Yeah, I will just say that something that I've really appreciated about my time at Stillhouse is that passion and initiative are greatly rewarded. I began the press with very little experience in publishing and just little experience in bookkeeping, which is something that Stillhouse was in need of at the time as one student was moving out of the journal and I was coming in. So I had that experience, but I kind of came in with wanting to learn everything. And the lovely thing about this MFA program is that typically MFA programs can last 2 years, but with the extra 3rd year that this MFA program allows in Stillhouse, that means like kind of Taylor was kind of mentioning, is that first year you can kind of just, it can be a taking in kind of period and learning anything that you want to. And moving up to your 3rd year where I started out knowing barely anything and I'm about to transition in my 3rd year to lead publicist of the magazine. So it's skills and it's an opportunity that I don't know if I would have had as easily had I not been in a program like this that fostered this kind of opportunity. So very much grateful for, and I think the rest of our staff would agree likewise.
Mhm.
Like I mentioned earlier, Iris Magazine is primarily an internship run program. So we have applications open from January to March, and then the internship is for an academic year. So it'll start in August and then end in May. And so since we're run with the University of Virginia's Women's Center, they do a lot of the recruitment on our behalf. So I, as editor, or Susannah, as assistant editor, we're not directly involved with that recruitment. However, we do still have a lot of word of mouth. That's how we get a lot of people to know about Iris and start to apply for Iris. We do a lot of collaborations with other literary magazines on grounds, and so that's where we get a lot of interest. And so, for example, we had a recent event with other lit mags. It was kind of like a launch party for everyone's issues. And so some people came up to me asking, "Oh, can I join? How do I write?" And I said, "Oh, you'll have to wait until the next year to apply." But yeah, so all of that is really streamlined with University of Virginia's Global Women's Center. And then one other thing is that they have a lot of resource fairs that us as interns, like I've never really been on, but when I was a 1st-year student, that's how I actually first learned about Iris Magazine. It was because the University of Virginia's Women's Center had a resource fair, and they were talking about all the things that they had available. And so a lot of 1st-year students learn about the Women's Center there. But if Susannah, if you want to talk more.
Yes, to speak more to the question of how we graduate people to positions of leadership, we have a very open and collaborative process with our writers. We're constantly opening up the floor to them in our edit and pitch meetings to hear their perspectives, not just on their own pieces, but on each other's. We always, once a semester, have a cycle where we encourage them to edit each other's pieces. Additionally, we likewise have mentorship programs. Like this year, I worked on creating a buddy system between returning interns and new interns to keep them engaged and feel more welcome in the space.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm going to let Laura and Mary jump in on this as well, I hope, if they have comments. But I'm sorry, I'm a PhD student. I don't have any answers. I just have questions. And so I'll share what we're challenged by at the moment, which is that we really struggle with this question. And I think this is largely because we have a very hands-off faculty advisor, because this is viewed as really for us as professional development. As was mentioned earlier, when you enter academia, you do not have someone telling you how to do peer review. And so this is expected of largely for us to figure it out on some level, which I think is one of the benefits of that. But I think at the moment we really struggle because we have, as many universities do, we have multiple campuses at this point, and our editorial board is spread across those campuses, which means we do not have face-to-face engagement with one another, which makes the development and mentorship very hard at this point. So I think that this is something we're thinking about and been trying to think about how we can get together in person moving forward, but it remains an open question how we do this as we look ahead here.
Does anybody online want to add to that?
I will say, perhaps a little pessimistic. I do think we have challenges, but I do think we have some great infrastructure in place. As Jason mentioned, we have the Ubiquity platform, which helps us streamline a lot of our editing process. And it through word of mouth and engagements through Community Change Collaborative, and like-minded faculty and students, we have been able to recruit editors and peer reviewers over the years. We use listservs, newsletters, Canvas ads, all kinds of mechanisms to recruit people. And it's a matter of finding people that have the interest. I totally agree with some of the comments that I've been hearing, that coming with passion and initiative is really important. So yes, but there's definitely responsibility on each editor to do some learning in that role and put in the time to really learn the position and learn through experience and through practice and trial and error. So yeah, I think it's a balance of providing structure for editors, but also understanding that as professionals, especially as we look at graduate students as professionals, they have to put in the time to make the role their own.
Or do you have anything you might want to add to that? Or you?
Yes, just want to add to what Larry said. So I just want to talk about recruitment. There are sometimes that collaboration with graduate school, especially talking with the graduate director of each department in order to recruit maybe editors or something like that. And in trying on, like what Lara said, if there are new editors, there are sometimes we are engaged. Like I came in, I think this is my first year. So we are charged with leadership, what would I say? Like that sometimes we are given an assignment, like we'll be asked, like, are you ready to take charge of this article? Are you ready to take charge of this submission? So we are charged with responsibility intentionally, just to like build up that ability in us to take charge in a role. So I just want to add to what Larry said.
Everybody, that was a really good answer. I think I'm interested in a lot of the ideas about mentorship and just also the drawbacks of that, and how this is just, I don't know, there are no solutions to this question, but it's cool to hear everybody bounce ideas off each other. I have a sort of adjacent question. Not everybody needs to answer it. We don't have a ton of time, but I'm curious what sort of support your journal gets from your university, whether that's not necessarily financial, but just like support with faculty and whatnot. And then also, what support do you wish you could receive? Just whoever wants to take that. We can bounce around. We don't need to really. You want to?
So I think that we do have a staff advisor, but it's also kind of a hands-off approach. And I'd say one of the things that we wish that we got more support in is when it comes to funding, like especially when you're doing social media stuff, we have to use like Wikimedia Commons usually, and you don't have that great of like expansive options. So I wish that we got some more funding to help create a more creative and innovative approach to our media presence.
Yeah, I would say most of our struggles as a journal are related to the fact that we have zero funding whatsoever. We have verbal support from the university and from the Elliott School, but unfortunately we don't receive any formal funding. So a lot of the resources we use are either personal resources or something we kind of find out via word of mouth or experience. Like a lot of what I've been able to help us do and help us figure out as editor in chief, like us starting to work more with Wikimedia Commons, is that I worked in publishing professionally for about 4 months. So I did kind of get to see like, oh, here's what's out there that we can pay for, but also here's how you can make that work if you are on a shoestring budget. I think that's probably an issue a lot of us face is like we have informal support, but nothing formal or contractual saying like we're going to provide you additional support or funding. And so I think having the opportunity to expand beyond simply just having help publicizing and having some kind of financial backing, like with internships, or even just with being able to afford some additional services and stuff that'll make our lives easier. Some new technologies would definitely help make that process more streamlined and encourage people to stay on.
So like I said, we are primarily student run, but we do have a staff advisor at the Women's Center, who's wonderful and really kind of helps us through all steps of the process. Beyond her, we also have our artist team. We also have the director of communications at the Women's Center. We have the director of the Women's Center herself. We also have a social media team that's dedicated to promoting Iris magazine. So we're like blessed that we have all of these levels of support at the Women's Center. Something I do wish that we did have was just a little bit more communications with the other teams of interns at the Women's Center, because we primarily just work with the social media intern team, but there's also a lot of other teams like Legal Clinic or for example. And so I just wish we were able to connect with them a little bit more, because I have friends on other teams. It's really great to see the work that they do, but I'd love to see how Iris can communicate and collaborate with them in the future.
I've been annoying Lara today, so I'll give her flowers here at this point and suggest that we wouldn't be where we are without her support. But also, we live in a world where Lara has other things to do and needs to move on from it. And so I think that's the big question. I think we have had infinite support from the libraries, as you guys heard financially. They've been vital for us to be able to be open source in this space. Again, I'm a negative Nancy, so I'll say one of the difficulties is we're an interdisciplinary journal, which means we don't have necessarily a school home, so we don't have support. If you were listening yesterday, one of our sister journals at Virginia Tech Aspect, which has a very strong departmental support, we don't necessarily have that. We're trying to rebuild that relationship, but one of our strengths as an editorial board is to have folks from all over the university, but that also means we don't have a core department that we can go to for help. As much as the Institute is vital and incredibly instrumental for us, not having that departmental support does hurt us on the long term.
Left. So I wanted to see, I have more questions always, but does the audience have anything that they would like to ask our panel online or in person?
So I'm curious to hear from all of you. You know, we've talked about wanting to grow our journal, increase submissions, increase peer reviewers. We've, bounced around a lot of different initiatives. At one point, we did try kind of increasing our social media presence, all these different things, getting email listservs to send out our information. I'm wondering if anyone feels that they have a really clear example of one particular outreach method they did that produced the most growth in the journal, or they felt was most impactful, or if they feel like kind of doing a lot of small things at once were necessary.
Let's just have like one or two responses.
Okay, I would say we are obviously an undergraduate journal, but I think this applies across the board, is having formal presentations of your journal by actual staff members of the journal. I think that's huge. One thing we do every semester is going into research methods classes or into related international affairs courses and talk about the opportunity to publish and learn the publishing and research process. I think oftentimes the gap we have in knowledge of journals like this is that people don't know what's out there. They don't know that they have that learning opportunity. And so by providing just that little bit of outreach of someone who maybe looks more like them, you have a closer connection that makes them more inclined to pursue it further.
Yeah, I just okay. I want to say one impactful outreach method we use here is going through the graduate school and then the department graduate director. It was really, really effective. Like when information go to the graduate school, because every week we all graduate students receive information from graduate school. So every week also they will receive information about journal, community change journal. So it was really impactful and effective. Thank you.
We're almost out of time, but we could be quick.
Okay, thank you. I'll be really quick. Thank you all so much. I have a question about moving. A lot of y'all talking about moving members of you all's editorial teams up into more senior into senior leadership over time and like the processes with that. I'm curious to know with your experience. Over time, do you all see like increased engagement over time as members of your team kind of move up into other kinds of roles? And in a second point, a second question I have about that is, I don't mean this in a negative way necessarily, but because of this increased engagement, if that happens, is there like a sense of like competition in a way? I mean, like good competition of people trying to get higher up in the organization to help and engage more with the work and the content.
I'm happy to take this one. Our experience with kind of bringing people into leadership positions is that kind of slowly creating more buy-in and ownership over independent projects helps increase people's engagement. So a GPA might come in and they're starting like at the bottom, they don't know anything, they're not in charge of anything because they don't know anything. But as they learn more stuff, we're going to say, hey, here's this project, it is all your own. We expect you to get it done by this deadline. Please return it. And then we're like an older staff member, a staff member with more experience is there to kind of handhold throughout the process, like guide, give feedback, help them figure out what they're doing. But as they get more confident and as they take on more projects, we give them bigger projects until we feel they are ready to kind of step into a leadership role. They both know enough about the press and enough about the work that they're doing to confidently make their own decisions without having to go to somebody for help like every single time. And we have not had a lot of experience with competition because it's a small staff and we're all working in really different pools. Like if you're working in acquisitions, you don't care what I'm doing over in marketing. You're not worried about being in competition with me because marketing sounds like the most boring thing in the world to you and you don't want to do that. Jacob, you want to speak to that?
I will say also that kind of what Taylor was saying about little to no competition and roles or any kind of hierarchies is also because, like you said, we have such a small team and there's in each kind of realm of our press, there's so much to do. There's so many tasks to do. So just because you have taken on the role of, let's say, publicity research, that doesn't mean you can't dip your toes in social media engagement or operations like fulfilling orders or anything. Those things are always kind of allowed and welcome for sure. More hands, the better. So I don't think we've ever had that problem, luckily.
Thank you, everybody, for the excellent answers. I think sadly we have to cut it short now to move on to another panel. I could keep talking to you guys for an hour, but I really appreciated the questions from everybody and your answers and your honesty. And thank you. It was a really good time.